right now. If we come together, we're gonna make it somehow. Everybody stop. Stop right now, now today. Come together. If we come together, we'll make it someday. Let me hear you sing. 'Cause the world in trouble, trouble, yeah. Whoa, 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 in trouble. Whoa, in trouble. Oh, the world is in trouble. Give it for Leslie right there. Ricardo on the drums. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
So tell me, Will, how can you make the world being in trouble sound so groovy? I mean, that's a groove, man. Thank you. Connection. That's the focus this month. Everyone already lives in the infinite as part of the divine and therefore in continual connection with it and all of life. And today, to wrap up the month, living in grace. Now, I don't know how many of you guys have hung around or been around or were raised in religions that talked a lot about grace. Anybody? And how many of you understood what the heck they're talking about? Yeah. It was really kind of vague, at least in my past, in my experience, and so I spent a fair amount of time over the last 35 years trying to figure out what it is for me. And that's being in the right place, the right time, with the right resources. All good continually comes to me. I live in the harmony of life, no exception. You might call that luck. And yet, the way it was used, the way the term was used when I was a kid, was you can't get to heaven by works alone, only by God's grace, and blah, de blah, blah. So today I hope to address this idea of grace in the metaphysical viewpoint, from the viewpoint of New Thought, in such a way that you can start using that G word like you've learned to use the other G word that so many of us have put up warding symbols away from, talking about God. Because it's all one. Because truly, if we live in connection, there's no exception. Nothing is outside of that. If life itself is infinite, we couldn't get out of it if we tried. Being infinite, it's everywhere present, even inside, outside, it doesn't matter. Wherever you point, there it is, and therefore, a piece of us always is. So living in grace is knowing, feeling, and experiencing all of the good of the universe all of the time. And we can do that when we accept our connection in all of life, when we realize we're not separated from any of it. So there was this guy, Joe, who had, after many years of hard work, decided to treat himself to a very nice and luxurious vacation at a Caribbean resort. So he got out there, he got his chair and his cool umbrella beverage, and he's just chilling and enjoying the sun and the scenery. And he sees this guy who he went to high school with, Pete, standing over there. He goes, wow, I can't imagine Pete being here. It was kind of a burnout when we were in high school together. So he went over and he put out his hand and says, "Pete, it's so good to see you. It's Joe from high school. You seem to be doing really well." Pete said, "I am. I'm a partner in a very successful law firm, and ever since high school, this has been the life I've been living. But please don't tell my mom, because all through high school, she thought I got all of my money from being a drug dealer, and she'd be terribly disappointed that this is how I get my money." It was a lawyer joke. Yeah, well, sometimes delivery stinks, doesn't it? It's this little old absent-minded professor. Let's try this one. He gets on his cell phone, calls 911. He is just so upset. "Please, someone's broken into my car and they stole my stereo, my steering wheel, my brake pedal, and even my accelerator pedal." So the dispatcher says, "Well, hang on there, sir. An officer will be right there." And not too long after that, the officer calls back into the station and said, "So on that call, just forget about the stolen car parts thing. He accidentally got in the back seat." That's a little better. So, have you ever maybe possibly misunderstood what was going on around you? Whether you're just being absent-minded or maybe didn't pay that all much attention. The same thing in my mind is true with regard to grace. And if we live in the one, and all good already exists around us, sometimes we don't even see it. Because we get so busy, so torqued out about some particular notion, we get trapped in the world's falling apart, ain't it awful? We neglect to see all this good that still exists around us. And we lose our attention from it. Ernest Holmes wrote, "The spiritual genius of Jesus lay in his knowledge of spiritual laws. And of all of the great masters of the ages, this could be true. He dared to believe in the invisible source of his being and trust it. And he was not frightened by the storm, nor by the fears of others. He could say peace to both, because he knew the truth of the matter. He knew that within and around all of us, all that good always existed, still exists right here, and it will exist forever. When we learn to trust the universe, we shall be happy, prosperous, and well. We must learn to accept the fact that nature's table is ever filled. Never was there a cosmic famine." Seems like it sometimes. So Emmitt Fox wrote about the right place and the true place. So this is the difference. He felt like there was a huge distinction between what was our right place and our true place. Have you ever heard in New Thought, you're in exactly your right place? It's all good, it's all perfect. Well, it doesn't always seem good and it doesn't always seem perfect. When you read what you can pick up on the media, whether it's in the internet or if it's in the newspaper, read it on your phone, on your iPad. All these electronic resources tell us about what's going on in the world around us. And we have our own experiences as well, because stuff happens, doesn't it? Fox's point of view is your true place is where you are meant to be in the greatest sense of the idea. That means that you feel joyous all the time. You feel true prosperity all the time. You're doing your work, that which you came to do all the time. there's never a doubt in your mind. It's absolute clarity and peace all the time. And he also defined your right place as where you are right now. It doesn't matter what the conditions, the circumstances, your experiences of that are. It's just a matter of you're in your right place. Now, if the right place, by these definitions, happens to be uncomfortable or undesirable, all that means is it's time to do some inner work. So you get your head straight so that that place that you're experiencing right there, which is a function of where your head has been up to this moment, and where your head has been is what brought about this particular moment, that's still your right place, because that's the place where you do the work so you can get to your true place. You hear the difference? Okay, so there was a period of time in my life where it seemed like nothing was working. I had 2 crummy jobs at the time. Both of my managers were abusive to the employees, and I'm wondering, what the hell is going on here? So one morning I was on my way to one of those jobs. And I'm thinking about all this and thinking about all this, and I noticed that I was being punished, it seemed, at every turn. It seemed like I was getting beaten up everywhere. And so there was no joy really in my life. I'd find moments of relief or ease, but there was no joy, no active engagement in life with enthusiasm. I didn't look forward to getting up every morning. And so I got to thinking about this. I'm walking along, enjoying the crisp morning air on my way to that job, and thinking, good grief, if I look at my environment, and I knew metaphysics at the time, if I look at my environment, and since I know that my thinking brought about these experiences I'm having right now, if I look at the outcomes, the experiences, the conditions, the circumstances that I have in my life right now, I'd have to conclude I think I need to be punished for something. Have you ever heard anything more ridiculous in your life? Have you ever thought you needed to be punished? Have you ever felt like you were being punished? Like no matter what you did, it was bad luck or bad timing, or people were just abusive as the Dickens. What I'm saying is it's the thinking that made the experience. So based on my experience, I had to conclude that I had concluded I need to be punished. And so as I'm continuing to walk to work, thinking, gosh, I have not done anything for which I need to be punished. Have I made mistakes? Sure. But we all make mistakes, so what? That doesn't require punishment to correct those mistakes. You learn from those. That the experience itself is plenty sufficient punishment. And yet I had it and had it and had it. I must think I need to be punished. For what could I have done that required this level of continual exposure to punishment? What did I do? I couldn't come up with anything. Had I hurt people? I've been told that I had, but I'd never done it intentionally. I might be unconscious. Could I be more conscious? Sure. Do I need to be punished because I'm not conscious enough? Not to accidentally step on someone's toes? If they tell me I step on their toes, I'll make sure I never do that again. It's that simple and straightforward to me. Punishment, it's like that's the little kid who doesn't get to stay up late, have dessert, or go to the movies. So the more I hung with that, and it was about a 20-minute walk to work, the more I hung with that, I decided and declared, I don't need to be punished. I always do my best, all the time, and I keep other people in mind as I do that without giving me up in the process. Okay. And I let that settle in. I started feeling the sense of relief, and my shoulders relaxed, and I just flowed along on the street as I was walking. And just before I arrived at this abusive job, I thought, I think it's time that Ken left. Ken was the manager. I think it's time Ken left and we had a healthier environment. Yeah, I think that's good. I like that. So I go in, I get there, start work at 8 o'clock. Noon, Ken calls everybody out to the middle of the floor to have a conversation with him and let us know that he has turned in his resignation and he's leaving. I think, that's quick. And he left 2 days later. Somebody else came in, delightful human being, worked with and raised everyone's wage because it was at poverty level at the time, etc. That kind of stuff started changing. And other places around my life, there was this natural reordering of circumstances. Now, have you ever thought your life was falling apart when in fact it was actually falling together? You just had to get some stuff out of the way. So some changes happened during that time period. And the more I observed it, the more I recognized that, one, I don't need to be punished, therefore I can let my good in. And more good started coming into my life. Now people, this is not an exceptional experience. I'm telling you something that is simple, teachable, provable in the world of experience. Anyone can do this. It's a matter of deciding, not from entitlement, but from the absolute true place, that your true place lives inside of you and as you. And as soon as you do your work while you're in your right place, you liberate yourself into that true place. I don't think it gets any better than that. The perception of wholeness is the essence of all healing. This is the classic teaching of Ernest Holmes, that perception of wholeness as we view and experience all one, completeness, integrous experiences. We see that everything is in its right place at the right time all the time. We experience ourselves in our true place, and our right place and our true place align. Then we experience that joy. Doesn't mean there won't be tension, because in nature there's tension, but it's not stressful. Big difference there. There's tension in nature, but stress, that's human ordained. We're in charge of turning it into that awful, debilitating stress. So the perception of wholeness is the essence of all healing, is what living in grace is about. By accepting that wholeness in our lives and seeing that everything is in its right place, and so am I, and if I don't like my experience, I can change that. What a gift that realization can be. So knowing that, let's let that build within us and feel that sense of harmony inside. Notice any points of distraction in the body and let them go. Breathe them out. Breathe in ease. Breathe out tension. Let the shoulders relax. Breathe out anything that's noticeable in that regard. And let it build in your body. And while sitting in that experience, I invite our practitioners to come forward, and we'll have our wall of prayer. So let's join in this today in our community prayer, moving further and deeper into this perception of wholeness. Let's pray together. So this very moment, I become more aware of the ease within my body. And I know that ease comes from the peace within. I know that all good comes from within. All joy begins within. and comes from the source of all life. What I see outside, I know as true inside. And I let the truth come forward into my awareness, so more of that truth, that's the capital T truth, that all joy, all peace, all abundant good, wholeness itself, health, well-being, harmony, love, already exist within. And so in this simple exercise, I let that breathe itself out into the outer world and come more into alignment with that true place. So as these words get spoken this morning, I know them as complete, and the experience builds, and we celebrate in it. So as these individual prayers continue, I'll let the experience of joy and fulfillment increase. I know that this law, this principle that rules the universe, that brings all things into form, into expression, into experience, it responds to the word. And I know that word as truth, truth itself. So with the celebration that started, I let that celebration rise. I let it come out of each person. I'll let that truth take hold. And the what was right place now gets fulfilled with the truth. That sense of wholeness increases. So with that joy deep within me, with that sense of it's done, it's complete, satisfying me, I know for every person this realization that all good already exists and moves into each person's experience. So I let it be. I let these words go. And together we step into the flow by saying, and so it is.